Hey guys, welcome back to the Genuine Reviews 324. This is another thank you for back for the marathon of the It's Just Lunch. Um, so before I begin on the next three dates, I want to start off by saying yes, I'm in sales, and sales for every time I told people about sales and kind of what I did before I really got into it, they almost immediately thought I was a crook, and I that's just a taboo when someone thinks of a salesperson. What I do as a salesperson in my personal life, I am extremely regulated in what I do. I don't sell cars. I don't sell something that's not regulated. It's regulated by everything I do is regulated by the state and the federal government. I don't sell houses, but it's to that level of regulation. Um, Open to selling houses, but I don't have a realtor license and all that stuff. Um, um, and then also the fact that I have a bachelor's degree, it was also one of those things that apparently they didn't know about that going into the date, but they were just told I was successful. But once they found out that they have degrees and I don't, they looked at me like I was trash and I was not going to make it in this world, even though I might have made more money than them, or I could make more money than them, or I still make more money than them. So those are just two things I wanted to touch upon real quick. And let's get on to the three dates in August that I did. So after you watch the review video with Naomi, this makes sense now why I had three dates in August and not one. So the first date I had was with a woman who came across and she told me that she was in the military. So I was like, thank you for your service. All the dates leading up to this were all of in my criteria, so to speak. This is the first one where it felt a little bit outside my criteria. Not to say I wasn't open minded to it. Um, this is also the first date where, in a long time, where it wasn't in the city of Chicago. I was in back in the suburbs, back in Oak Brook, and I used to work in Oak Brook last year, so I was somewhat familiar with the area, but I'd never been to the Oak Brook Mall in this fashion. I found out really quickly in this Oak Brook Mall in that specific area that the parking was literally almost impossible. I literally had to park almost five parking lots away and literally run into the date 2 minutes before the date started. Luckily, the woman was not upset. She was reading a book. She was the first woman I dated who was not of strictly a Caucasian descent, which again, I'm not open minded to that. I'm open minded to anyone of any descent as long as they are in somewhat of the criteria that I want. The criteria that I want is someone who is works out a little bit, adventure, outdoorsy a little bit, or at least just open minded to me and okay with me and down to earth at this point. And someone who is, like I said, somewhat understanding of their health and knowing of that. So going to the date, we had a good time. She ended up eating and I didn't. I wasn't hungry. I always usually prepared for the date and just ate somewhere else and try to keep it light, whereas she had a full-blown meal. I found out later from my friends that I should have had something. And then what's weird about this date is that this is the first restaurant that didn't split, so I had to pay for part of her meal. Not that that's a big deal. You should be a gentleman and just go along with it, which I did. Um, so I found out that this woman was somewhat of Hispanic descent, decent looking. She was short, but I wouldn't necessarily say her petite. She was kind of chubby. Not to say that that's the end of the world or anything. She had made some, to me, misleading remarks about herself. She said she was single. We ended up exchanging numbers afterwards. I was kind of boasting what I did because I didn't really understand how I was supposed to act because um, of the coaching. I was trying to be of what I was trying to be what the coach had said, and so I was boasting about what I did because I was trying to make sure that they understood that I was successful. This person wanted to be a police officer in the area, but she lived very far away. Oak Brook was a midpoint, and Oak Brook for me was about an hour and a half to get there, and she was another hour and a half north. So it would have been almost a 2 to 3 hour drive to get to her just to go on another date. So that was very far. And besides that, she was in the military, but she was kind of overweight in the military and was upset with that, and clearly expressed that you can be overweight in the military when protecting American lives. I kind of disagree with that, but I didn't tell her to her face. I cordially walked her to her car. We really didn't talk after that. It was a good experience for me to understand kind of that, it's okay to have a different body type, not be too picky, but at the same time, like I actually liked guns, and we got along with knowing that we both like guns. But she tried to tell me stories that didn't really land anything. That being said, I think we just kind of parted our ways, and then I found out the next day from Naomi that I shouldn't be boasting as much. I should be more humble, and my other friends told me I should be more humble. And from that point going forward, I became super humble with all the dates, and was just more grateful just to be out on a date and have a good time with someone, but also not trying to necessarily waste my time. Then the next date, I went with a lady who I actually really got along with, and she almost settled down with me, but it's a little misleading. So the next date, I went out to the West Loop. So I'm not in the city, like downtown Chicago, but I'm not in the suburbs. But there was free valet, so I thought that was cool. You obviously want to give them a tip because the people are obviously getting paid for this. And it was in a nice restaurant. This is still in August, so we had outdoor seating. I could clearly hear her. There was no issues with sound. Same with the previous one, one with Wanted to Be a Cop, the Oak Brook. There was no issues with sound there either. So we never went back to the Smith after that. No issues with sound. I could actually have a conversation and actually learn and start really developing like my dating skills, who I need to know, where I'm trying to go with this, etc. And so Miss A here, for an example, on the second date, I found out that she was originally from a small town in Iowa. She grew up kind of like what I did. Like Indiana and Iowa are similar, where they're country-ish, not exactly big city, but have big cities near. She went to college, was a D1 athlete. She was a pilot. She initially had a bachelor's degree in something, but changed her major over time because she saw her father struggle. Or not, I'm sorry. Maybe she... I might be thinking of someone else, but anyway, she changed her major during COVID because I think she was a graphic designer, and then she went to be a pilot after that. And so I was really happy that she was a pilot. I love driving. I love piloting things. I love piloting my kayak. Super respectful. But again, this was one of those situations, kind of like the doctor, where her schedule and my schedule, I have a very adult schedule, the 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, some Saturdays. She does not, because she's a brand new pilot, being the first year. She doesn't have seniority to have her own schedule, and therefore her 2 days off during the week are not together. They're probably like Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that, and she's on the road, away in a sense, for 4 days of the week. None of my days off are the same days, and it was like, okay, what do we do? Like, how are we going to schedule this? These dates, I'm going to have a couple hours here and there after my hard day of work, but your full day off, and we're never going to be able to really see each other. She was extremely attractive. She's probably one of the most attractive women I dated in the whole service. She actually acknowledged that I was super into a lot of things, and I just kind of kept the conversation on her and the attention on her. And she literally said that after the date and later on that she was going to let me date her a second time. However, a previous person from the previous month had grabbed her attention sooner, and she was going to be more devout to her, and she was putting her subscription on hold. So, and she had told the dating service that too. So, I didn't feel so bad with that one. I did really like that person, but it was one of those things where that schedule is so weird that it was going to be really tough for me to not necessarily get to know her, but have that casual time to really spend time with her in a more intimate way, in any way that we might be having, whether we're reading a book together or we're watching a movie. Like those 3 hours a week are going to be really important. And so it wasn't a total loss, but it was just one of those sad situations. And I actually found that that's really bad of the dating service to say, let's push you on this other date while you're still dating this other person. I mean, that's kind of like, come on, bro. Like you shouldn't be setting people up. But I mean, I guess if that's what they're paid to do, and the other person's not totally convinced that they're with that other person, but it's it's a tricky situation. I don't necessarily agree with something like that. I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, let's push them to another date right away. And the dating service says, well, if you don't like them right away, we'll just put you on another date in, a month anyways. So it's kind of a weird catch-22 situation. But anyways, then I went on a third date that month. The third date was with a foreigner, a Ukrainian. And this was the first date where this woman was a little bit outside my age range, which I didn't say before. My age range, being 33 at the time, my age range was 27 to 36, I believe. And this person was 37. So just 1 year older than my maximum, but really only 4 years older than me. I was trying to keep it a kind of a broad 10, 9 years age range, just to keep myself open-minded. I don't want to go too much older, but I also didn't want to go too much younger. So this is the first person we meet. This is the first date where I'm starting to understand that the dating service, again, they have not ever vetted themselves to these restaurants. They're just getting these restaurants purely based on, oh, these restaurants are willing to take a reservation with this company, and the reservation it says a reservation. That's it. They don't know how the parking is, and they don't know what the restaurant is. Now, obviously, based on the experience with the Smith, they didn't have any idea what the restaurant, the inside, sound dynamics, how they seat people, etc. But this is the first time they didn't understand even the parking. So I would every date I would give this great feedback to Naomi and say, hey, by the way, this parking sucked, or this area was bad, or this restaurant was good, or this restaurant was bad based on sound, or blah, blah, blah. So we go to this restaurant, and it was called The Machine, or something like that, or The Engineer Machine, and it was a really cool restaurant, and it had some cool cocktails and stuff, and just a nifty place. I'm not saying it's necessarily great or bad. It was interesting. But again, I had to tell the waitress these are blind dates, and et cetera, et cetera. And the lady, I was a little bit earlier than her. She came a little late, not a big deal at this point. I'm just like, whatever, had a good time. She, at no point in the date did she ever give me necessarily a bad flag or a red flag during the date. She was very cordial. It lasted 3.5 hours. And then after the date, she exchanged numbers, and the next day, it's, oh, I'm sorry, we think the dating service set us up wrong. You're the wrong age range for me, or something like that. And I'm like, you could have told me that after the first hour. I kind of feel that that's a big waste of my time. I mean, I'm all out for having a great time and having dinner with someone and trying to get to know new people because I'm somewhat of an extrovert, being in sales. But at the end of the day, I could have driven home and saved myself and gotten to bed earlier and rested up for the next day. And I was not able to do that. So that kind of pissed me off a little bit. And I wish people didn't do that. After that, I was trying to cut myself off at like 2 hours. I feel like 3 hours on a blind date for someone you never know, you never met before is just too long. So that was the first 3 dates in August. Then moving to September, I had 2 dates. I had a date with Mrs. T, and let's see what Mrs. T was about. I forget. Well, I went on a date with this woman back at this place in the West Loop. Um, oh yeah, she she was a designer, and she also was successful. She had a very interesting job. She would design experiences for people to be better. For instance, cancer patients to have a more welcoming experience. Um, Now that's not really a grateful job because apparently they don't put like, oh, this iPhone is designed by, or the way that iPhone is designed by X, Y, and Z. They don't do that. So she doesn't get a lot of recognition for her job, but it's kind of a cool job nonetheless. We got to sit down. Uh, she's also very beautiful woman, also with my criteria. Now, the one issue I had with this is this is a restaurant where I went to before, and it was really nice, and everyone was cool. And the waiter was upset the whole time because I didn't order food. Neither of us did. And again, this is one of those issues where it's just lunch. Did not explain to the restaurant this is a blind date where we are not going to necessarily buy food. We're probably just going to buy one drink, and that's all we did. Um, I ordered coffee, which kind of was a mistake. I was a little too talkative, but again, I was told to be talkative. I was coached into doing that because the other guys were not talkative. So I was trying to be that $300 date that the girls are paying for, the $600 date or whatever. And I was trying to be myself, and I was trying to let them get to know me in a very fast-paced way. Um, we exchanged a hug at the end. It felt forced, and it just didn't feel right. Um, and that's it. And I don't really know what to say. You either feel it or you don't. And that one really did not feel right. Even though I got to know her, there was just something off. So moving on, I had another date that month. I had a date with a woman who I still talk to today. Um, she's a dentist. I'm just going to keep it at that. She knows who she is. We still text. This is the woman that we met at that same restaurant again as Mrs. T, where the waitress got upset. But we initially I was like, let's just sit out. I'm going to sit outside. She didn't want to sit outside. This woman was the first woman who actually showed up late. So the dating service says to be there 15 minutes early, and you're on time. And then when you're on time, you're necessarily late. This woman showed up almost 15 minutes late. So about 7:10, I ordered myself a beer, and I was like, all right, well, nonetheless, I'm going to at least have myself an alcoholic drink, and I'm going to chill for a second before I figure out what I'm going to do next for the day. Because I thought she was just going to blow me off. Because no one usually the dating service, you can get notified in after hours through the service that the person might not show up. Even if they're coming late, they just might not show up, or they're coming late, etc. So there's a certain line a certain phone number you can call in and tell people. They aren't going to be your coaches, they're just after hours support staff. So she shows up almost 15 minutes late. I think there was some college football on I was watching on the side. And I was actually kind of upset. And she's like, oh, I just showed up just a little bit late. And I'm like, ma'am, I've been sitting here for like half an hour. And she's like, oh, it's not that bad. And I'm like, no, it is that bad. You're late. So we got to talking. And this woman is the king of the must box. And when I say must box, like MUSTS, it is like the list is so long, I don't think there's a single person on this earth that will fit in her box, in her little box. And that doesn't mean that she's not a nice person. She just has very, very high standards for a woman who is 37 years old, and she expressed to me that she's $2 million in debt, and she wants to have kids at 37, and let's see, what were her other... So you had to be successful. You had to be making a lot of money. You had to have your own business practice. You had to be... So I'm 5'9", but she actually wanted a guy that was 5'11", or taller. She wanted a guy that was a little buff, I'm not necessarily buff in any way, but I'm not necessarily fat. Kind of just average build. Um, she wanted a guy who was charming, who the guy could have had kids, but she'd been on other dates before where they had kids and she didn't like it. So that immediately changed for her where the guy couldn't have kids. The guy couldn't have any other baggage. Mainly, the guy had to have a few $1,000,000 profit, and it all be for her because all she wanted to do for the rest of her life was not take care of the kids that she wanted, but lay on a beach and drink margaritas and have a guy take care of her and make sure that her debt was wiped. Also, this girl had extremely high standards. I explained that I was at Key West one time and I had a really expensive hotel room a couple times and it was not worth it. I was La Conch Hotel on Duval Street and I paid like $500 a night. And she's like, "Oh, that's not expensive." And she said she went to a hotel in Italy where she spent 5,000 euros a night, and she spent 3 nights there, which equivalents to almost $16,000. And I was asking, like, do you get any massages with this hotel room? Do you get? She says, no, it was just on a TV show. You get nothing extra, no extra shampoo or nothing. And I thought, wow, $2 million in debt, and you're spending money like this. This is insane. But nonetheless, she's a nice person, but she's just not a person for me. However, because we did connect, it was weird. So the dating service, this is the way the dating service works. Once you connect with someone and go on a second date with someone, all of the people that are like that person you connect with. So if I were to connect with the very first date, I would have connected with almost all of the pool of the dating service, which makes no sense. They should just make it more open-minded for everyone because the variables are so contrast, and a lot of it's due to the people in the dating service or the people running it, not to the actual people experiencing it. Like half the people I'm dating aren't even people that I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I would talk to anyone on the street. I'm very open-minded, but some of the people, they wouldn't even talk to me in the gas station because of just who they are, or they're shy, or maybe what I do. Even though what I do is very important in this world, it's just who they are. Very picky, somewhat stuck up, or the fact that I just live in Indiana and they don't understand what Indiana is. Which is very closed-minded, considering I live in a suburb of the entire area that they're supposed to be a part of. And I have literally traveled to almost every single suburb of Chicago, and probably traveled to most of the northern half of Chicago more than anyone else has in the whole dating service. So I'm very experienced with the area. It's just that I'm not living in the area. I don't know every little restaurant, every little corner bar, etc., etc. But that being said, so I connected with the dentist because we exchanged phone numbers, we're still talking, etc., and they looked at it as a positive thing. I'm not saying it's not a positive thing. I looked at every experience as a positive thing because it was a learning experience. And they looked at it as I failed all these until I got to this dentist, who this dentist didn't really connect with anyone either, and therefore I started connecting with all these other random people. So I said, let's just open up the pool, make it super, down to earth, etc. So that's where I'm going to leave off this video. I'm going to try to keep the next one shorter and go over the next couple dates, etc. And take care for now. Be safe, guys. Have a good one.